We're going to look at example 2B in our section 4.7 notes. All right, so just like 2A, we cannot apply L'Hopital's rule directly. We're going to try to convert this to the form 0 over 0 or infinity or over infinity. So first of all, we need to see what we have. So we're looking at the limit as x goes to infinity, so definitely as we go up to infinity, we'll have infinity there, minus, and square root as something that goes out to infinity will be infinity. So we need to definitely do some rewriting to get it into the right form. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is mess with the square root. All right, so I would really like to be able to take out an x squared because I can do the square root of x squared as I look on the right side as we go out towards infinity. Okay, so I'm going to factor out an x squared. So I'll be left with a 1 plus, the tricky part is taking an x squared out of the 4x part. Okay, so you actually are left with 4 over x when you do that. And you can definitely double check this really quickly. You'll go right back to x squared, and then you will definitely have a 4x there. Okay, all right, so the reason I'm doing this is the square root of x squared is going to be x as we go out towards infinity. So I'm going to evaluate that square root. So I'm going to have x minus x, and this part I have to leave under the square root. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and factor out an x because I can see that in common now. Okay, when I factor out an x, I'm going to have 1 minus that square root. Okay. All right, so I've changed my form a little bit, okay? So instead of having the subtraction, now I have infinity times, well, if I evaluate this as we go to infinity, I know this part's gonna be 0, so I really have 1 minus the square root of 1, which is definitely gonna lead us to a 0. So we're getting closer here. Okay, so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mess with this x here. All right, so moving the x, I can think about this as like dividing by the reciprocal. Okay, if I put that down there, I'm not changing anything because if I divide by the reciprocal, this would flip it, go right back to the x, okay? But the good news is as we go out to the infinity, this goes to 0. So we have 0 here, and we already know that the expression in the parentheses, which is now the top, that is a 0. So we are finally ready to apply L'Hopital's rule, okay? So you need to do the derivative of the top and the bottom. Okay, for the denominator, it might be helpful to think of this as x to the negative 1. Okay, so we'll drop that down, the negative 1, and then decrease the power. So we'll end up with negative 2 there. Okay, negative sign stays. Remember when we do a square root, it's like a 1/2 power. So if we drop the 1/2 down, okay, then we're going to get 1/2 minus 1. We're going to have this expression to the negative 1/2. And then we still need to take the derivative of the inside. So it's going to be very similar to what we did to the denominator. We're going to have a negative 4 when we drop the negative 1 down. And then when we decrease the power, we'll end up with a negative 2 there. Okay, so that's what we have so far. Okay, so the good news is we can see that we got a little bit of canceling going on. So this x to the negative 2 is going to cancel with that x to the negative 2. So that's really good news for us because we're going to be able to evaluate this limit at this point. Just be really careful and keep our negative signs, keep track of those. So here we're going to have a negative 1/2 still. Okay, if we evaluate this, we're going to get 1 plus, we talked about 0, and this is still a square root. Okay, that square root is actually downstairs because of the negative 1/2. So let's go ahead and move it down there just so we can see it. All right, so 1 plus 0. Okay, we still have the negative 4 right here. Okay, and then we still have that negative 1, which I'm just going to put a negative sign right there. Okay, so that's what we end up with when we evaluate. So it's pretty easy to do. So the overall answer is definitely going to be negative because of the 3 negative signs. And then 1/2 times 4 is 2. So our overall answer is negative 2.